Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today. The Council House bells of Nottingham are ringing in our ears and that signifies it's 10 o'clock, so we shall make a start. I want to introduce Dan today, if that's okay. Dan is going to be producing the show for us today, keeping me on the straight and narrow in timings and moderating your questions. So say hi, Dan.
Hi Dan. So any questions anybody's got, just drop a little comment in the chat and I'll be reading anything out just so Phil can answer it as we go along. And I'll also try and keep him to time. Do we have a ballpark figure that this is going to be yet, Phil?
We think this will be an hour today, including questions.
Perfect. Okay.
So hopefully everybody can see the screen. Perhaps someone can just give Dan a quick thumbs up to say that you can see the screen. That would be great. And we will make a start. Give me 1 second. There we go. And we'll make a start. So today is all about CRMs. And we have, over the course of the past couple of years, while we've been running the Yardstick Agency, we've identified six problems that we've seen in financial planning firms. So that's where we're going to start on today's agenda. We're then going to propose a solution. Talk about the client journey and where CRMs, we see it fitting in that client journey and where we see them fitting in to traditional back office systems and how they can complement traditional back office systems. We'll then talk about data collection and the minimum amount of data we believe financial advisors and planners should be collecting when it comes to nurturing new inquiries. We then look at a CRM in action. The CRM that we use for ourselves and we use with clients tends to be something called Pipedrive. So we've set up a demo of Pipedrive for people to have a look at today. We'll then suggest some next steps, and obviously at the end we'll talk for maybe 30 seconds about how we can help. But I want to start with those 6 problems that we've identified in financial advice firms and financial planning practices. The first is there's definitely a sporadic collection of data when it comes to dealing with new inquiries. Many firms have got no process in place, or they're just not collecting the data that they need. And that means that they can't make evidence-based decisions. It means that they can't understand what's working and what's not working in their marketing. And many of them can't even identify what their conversion rate is. Those who can, we get to problem number 2, often have a relatively low conversion rate. And what I mean by that is total new inquiries to new clients engaged. I've seen that down as low as 1 in 10. And if you are having to generate 10 inquiries to get 1 new client, that's a lot of wasted marketing time and resource. Far better, rather than spending more money on marketing, to look at why your conversion rate is so low if that affects your firm. So two issues there around data collection and conversion rates. Number 3, the third problem, really flows through from number 2 of the low conversion rates, and that's the ineffective nurturing of new prospects. Too many firms may try once to get hold of an inquiry and don't bother to try again because other things get in the way, or there's no process in place for nurturing prospects. There's no process in place for staying in touch with people where the timing wasn't quite right, or whatever it may be, and that flows into a low conversion rate. We also see poor information sharing across different departments within multi-advisor or planner businesses, and across different systems. Trying to get systems to talk to each other is often quite difficult. And then in other firms, we see operational bottlenecks. So a firm may have a great first quarter in terms of new inquiries being generated. That means that in quarter 2 and quarter 3, they're going to have potential bottlenecks in their operations, which could cause problems with delivery, which of course affects brand and how your clients perceive you, which obviously could turn clients from advocates into, well, less so. So a early warning sign to spot these operational bottlenecks would be useful. And the final thing we see in some businesses is financial insecurity, what we call pipeline insecurity, not knowing really what's going in their pipeline, what's going in their sales funnel. So they don't know what might come out in the future. They don't know what new business they might be generating. They don't know whether they're on track to achieve their goals. They can't see what's ahead in the future. So those are 6 problems that we regularly see in financial planning firms. The solutions we'll come to in a minute, but by solving those problems, firms can then make decisions based on evidence and not gut feelings, which are never a good idea. It allows you to understand where your sales funnel is working, and we'll talk about sales funnel in more detail in a second, but it allows you to understand if your firms we work with, for example, they might have a 9 in 10 conversion rate when they're sat in front of clients, but overall their conversion rate might be 1 in 10. Now, that possibly lulls them into a false sense of security, in that they think and they feel that they've got a great conversion rate, and they have when they see people, but they don't necessarily have overall. So understanding where your sales funnel is working and isn't is massively important. And then by nurturing prospects more effectively, by nurturing those client inquiries more effectively, you will be able to spend less money on marketing, allocate less resource to marketing, because you're pushing up those conversion rates. If you're only converting 1 in 10 new inquiries and you're getting enough new inquiries, then the problem is with the conversion or the type of inquiry that's being created. And that's where you need to focus resource. And then, of course, by solving these issues, you'll be able to identify operational and financial issues before they potentially become a problem. So these problems are worth trying to solve if they exist in your business. Darren, I've seen a couple of things come through. Have you got any questions?
Mostly, we've had a few questions. People asking whether the slides and a copy of the video will be available after this.
Absolutely. The slides will be with you really quite shortly after we've finished, and the video may take us a couple of days to edit. But yeah, that'll be with you as well. Anything else, Dan?
No.
Okay, we shall crack on. So the solution to those problems, as we see it, is using a CRM system, a client relationship management system, effectively developing good habits and developing effective processes. Just putting a CRM in place on its own, without those good habits and without those effective processes, won't work. So we need all 3 of those things. And what I really want to talk about is where we're talking about in terms of the client journey, where we see CRMs fitting in. So typically, and everyone's slightly different, but typically this is the journey that a client will take to your door. They'll become aware of you as a business, perhaps by being referred by an existing client, a professional connection. They might have found you on a Google search or an advisor directory, but somehow they become aware of your business. Now at that point, they may well get in touch and skip out the interest part. But they may want to do an element of due diligence before deciding to get in touch. And that due diligence might be brand searches on Google, visiting your website, who knows, even looking at the FCA register. But they're doing a bit of digging to understand whether you are potentially the right person to solve their financial problems or help them to achieve their financial aspirations, whatever it is that their trigger is right now. Then they move into the consideration phase, which we've broken down into parts 1 and parts 2. And that's where they'll start by making contact, an initial phone call, an email, an inquiry form, but getting in touch. And that's, as someone said to me, and it's so true, clients meet us before we meet clients. So they've met you at the interest stage. They're starting to form an opinion about you at the interest stage when they've done that online search. What they see when they Google your business, what they see when they hit your website, starts to form an impression and starts to build that relationship. You only get to meet the client, of course, when they get in touch with you, and that's when you start forming a view about them. So that consideration part 1 them getting in touch by a phone call, an email, or sending an inquiry form. Hopefully, if the process is working well, that leads to an initial meeting and ultimately decision. And of course, that decision works both ways, whether you want to engage the client or whether the client wants to engage you. If you're both happy, both on the same page, you'll move forward to the advice process. So it's really the sections highlighted in green here, and maybe the phase before it, maybe the interest phase, but certainly considerations part 1 and 2 in the decision-making process, where we see CRMs as being so very important. But I wanted to talk about that and make sure everyone understood where we see CRMs fitting in here. Traditionally, and this is what I want to go on to now, the interaction between CRMs and traditional back office systems, because I think there's potentially some confusions here. Most financial planning practices that we come across use a back office system. It might be Intelligent Office, and it might be things like Curo, etc., etc. But most will use a traditional IFA back office system. Very few that we see use those back office systems in the early stage of when they've just received the inquiry. Most only start to use that back office system when the inquiry has said they want to become a client, when things like letters of authority are being signed, engagement letters are being signed, etc. So there's a couple of options here if we're interested in putting in processes for that inquiry nurturing stage, if we're interested in building good habits. And the first is to use your traditional back office systems CRM functionality. Now, on this call, we've got however many people we've got, 25, 30 people, and there'll be some commonality amongst the back office systems which you use. And some of those will have some CRM functionality, others won't. But that's your first option, is to investigate what CRM functionality your current back office system has. The second option is to continue to use your traditional back office plus a CRM, so a bespoke CRM. And you would use a CRM in the period up to the client, the prospect becoming a client, the prospect engaging, and then flip over into your traditional back office system when that person has engaged your business. And the third option is a bespoke CRM only, and that would be appropriate, I guess, for any firms which don't use a traditional back office system, but they're probably in the minority. The key, though, is really to dump the spreadsheets. Getting this information into these systems is so useful for a whole load of reasons, which we'll talk about as we go through this. If I was a financial planner and I was making this decision, what would influence my decision? Well, it's keeping the number of data sources to a minimum. Having a CRM, a back office system, a mailing system such as Dotmail or MailChimp, plus others, you've got a proliferation of data. So keeping the number of data sources to a minimum, keeping it to as few as possible is really, really important. Then I'll be looking at the functionality of the current systems, the functionality of the back office system. Can that traditional back office system give you everything you need? And then the MI and the KPIs which are available from it. Is it producing the information that you need to make those evidence-based decisions about your business? And to solve those 6 problems we identified at the start of the webinar, we'd suggest that the CRM system you use has to have the functionality to build pipelines, which we'll show you an example of in a minute, to allow easily allow configurable collection of relevant data, and so that you can manipulate the system to include the fields that you want to record, and that you're not finding it difficult to add those fields that are important to your business. You want to lead this, you don't want to be led by the system. And that allows then the easy production of MIs and KPIs which are relevant to your business and your goals, and obviously, of course, allows goal setting and goal monitoring. So those are the things in this stage of the pipeline, during interest, considerations, part 1 and 2, in the decision-making process. Those are the things that I would want my CRM to be doing. And I'm really interested to hear from anybody on chat who is doing this already and what systems they're using, and whether they're using the back office systems, the traditional back office systems, whether they're dovetailing a bespoke CRM and traditional back office systems, how you're pulling it together, whether you are B2B or B2C. I'd be really interested to know how that's working. But one of the key problems, going right back to the start, in fact, it might have even been the first key problem, is the recording of inquiry data. We see this as a massive issue within firms. Some firms record no data for the new inquiries that they receive. Others are completely the other end and record a huge amount of data, which is fantastic. And that allows us to make evidence-led decisions, understand what's going right and what's not. Others have a more sporadic approach. But these are the fields which we believe are essential for the recording of new clients, recording of new inquiries. Name, telephone number, email address, and the date inquiry received are all pretty obvious why you need those. And in multi-advisor or planner firms, it's also important to understand who the inquiry is allocated to, so you can start analysing the performance of individual advisors and planners, their conversion rates, etc., etc. The source is massively important, so that you understand whether it's come from your website, unbiased, etc., etc. Professional connections with existing clients. If it's come from one of those two sources, then make a note of who referred it on. But it's so important to understand what the source of the new inquiry is. And then the next one, which very rarely gets recorded, is whether the inquiry matches your target client profile. Was it from someone who is an ideal client? Now, putting aside the fact that many firms, when we start working with them, don't necessarily know who their ideal client is, which is an exercise we take them through. It can take, I'm led to believe, 4 to 6 months from new inquiry to the point where a client is engaged. And that's too long to wait to analyse and to understand whether that person was an ideal client or not. So an early indication, whether maybe on that first call or the first meeting, that this person was or was not an ideal client, is a canary in the coal mine, if you like. It gives us a good idea, a good early indicator of whether the marketing that you're undertaking is producing inquiries from ideal clients. Waiting to that 4 to 6 month point, if that's how long it takes, is too long. You could be doing a lot of marketing in that time, and a lot of wasted marketing in that time. So mapping or recording, I should say, whether an inquiry is from an ideal client is massively important. Clearly, whether an inquiry was won or lost, again, important. And if lost, what was the reason? Why didn't that client become a client? And there's many reasons. There's many reasons why someone might decide that you aren't the advisor or planner for them. There's many reasons why you might decide, well, that client isn't right for you. And we would also strongly recommend using locked or predefined fields for a lot of these, with additional ability to add comments, so that you can more easily analyze the data, and you're not having different people interpreting things in different ways. But making sure this data is collected, that it is collected and analysed, and there's a process in place for doing both, is crucial. Dan, I've seen a couple of things come in, so I'm going to take a sip of my cup of tea while you read these out.
So we've got a bit of activity. We've got a note from Pete Matthew.
Hi, Pete.
So we run Asana for project and task management, and I have a project for the prospect journey, but they're just placeholders, so I don't forget. No email interrogation or anything. I mean, yeah, we run Asana too.
Yeah, we run Asana. And in terms of systems we use, in full disclosure, we use Asana for project management. We use Pipedrive for dealing with new inquiries. And then we seem to have a whole host of other systems and bits and bobs that we use as well. But the two key systems for us are Asana and Pipedrive. Anything else, Dan?
Yes, so Kerry says, we also keep a record of how they want to be contacted, i.e. text, phone, email, and then obviously GDPR agreed.
Yeah, that's a good call. GDPR obviously is down to whatever you have in your privacy policy, but understanding how your clients prefer to be communicated with, whether it be email, what else have we got available? Telephone calls, something more traditional.
Yeah.
WhatsApp messages,
That's
whatever.
one.
Yeah, whatever it may be. That's a good call, Kelly. And it also means that if somebody else is seeing this client record, an administrator or power planner, they will understand what those clients' preferences are as well.
Yeah, and then we've got one last note from Matt Aitchison. So don't currently use a CRM, but looking at embedding one in the summer. Looking very seriously at Wealthbox as a true CRM rather than a traditional back office. We currently use a spreadsheet that's heavily influenced by our work with you guys.
Okay. Hopefully that spreadsheet is filling up, Matthew. We've got one client who uses Wealthbox right now, so happy to have a conversation with you, Matt, about that offline. If we've got no more comments, we'll go back to
That's everything.
Okay, we'll go back.
Yeah.
So data recording, massively important. And if you take one thing away from this session, it's these fields, plus anything else, as Kerry said, that are important to your business. But collecting this data and analysing it, massively important. So what I want to do now is just flip over to a dummy financial planning firm, which we have created in Pipedrive. So I'm just going to do a couple of things here. And for anybody who is my age on this call, I want to welcome you to Ambridge Financial Planning. And this is a dummy financial planning practice, which we have set up in Pipedrive. Now, I just want to talk about systems which are available, etc. There are clearly dozens of CRM systems available, from HubSpot to Salesforce to Zoho, Wealthbox, Matthew, as you mentioned earlier. There's any number available, and we absolutely haven't used them all. However, we did do a lot of due diligence before adopting Pipedrive to ensure that it delivered what we wanted it to deliver for us and for our clients. And for me, it gives a good mix of value for money, that mix of functionality versus simplicity. It's got enough that it's got enough without having too much and being too complex. Have we got any Pipedrive users on this call? I'd be really interested to find out.
We do actually. We've got Richard Allen.
Hi, Richard.
We use Pipedrive to manage our workflow, as it's superb for that. It's not as good at being a true CRM, in my opinion, and we use something else for that, interestingly.
Okay, and it'd be interesting to know what you mean by that, Richard, and where you feel it lacks. We found the support to be really good. It's configurable, and it handles multiple teams with different access levels as well, especially for multi-advisor firms. Now, this I've set up just for a sole advisor practice. So we use, as I say, Pipeline to handle our inquiries at any one time. We've got 40 or 50 to keep track of across multiple teams. And using the CRM has revolutionised how we deal with new inquiries. But make your own mind up. On the email we've got through, there's a link for a free trial with Pipedrive. Have a look at that. Have a look at other systems as well. Look at HubSpot. Look at Salesforce, Zoho, Wealthbox, all of these, and look at your own back office system as well, and see what functionality there is there, bearing in mind the requirement or the desire to keep the number of data sources to a minimum. But as I say, we've set Pipedrive up at a pretty simple level, as this is an introduction to CRMs, so that you can see how it might work. And I just want to take us on a bit of a tour here, and hopefully everybody can see the screen still. So there are four key areas where you would start if you were configuring a CRM, and maybe a fifth if you work in the corporate market. So there's the actual pipeline itself, which you can see in front of you here, and that's where all clients, all prospects go. People you've not formally engaged yet, or inverted commas won. And one of the things on Pipedrive which is jarring occasionally is some of the terminology. So some of the terminology is really quite salesy, with one and deals and things like that. But if you can get over that, it does work well. So pipeline, we'll talk through in more detail, and this is an example of the pipeline. The second thing that's really important are people, and being able to have people, and they are prospects and clients. Deals, now these are opportunities to do business with somebody, so they're different from people. A person may have a couple of deals, a couple of opportunities. Take, for example, a mortgage broker. The client may have be moving house, so deal one or opportunity one might be the mortgage itself. Deal two or opportunity two might be the need for them to take out some protection, some life insurance or critical illness. And they work independently of each other, as we may see on somebody later on. When we look at the system, they may go ahead with a mortgage, but they may decline the recommendation to take the protection out. So that's why it's important to put those separately. And then the fourth key area is the management information and the goals. Really important. It's all right, well, I'm going to put in this information in, but analysing it and making evidence-based decisions are key. And as I say, the fifth is the organisation. So you can add organisations or businesses to Pipedrive in the same way as you can add contacts and add people. Sorry, but if you're not working in a corporate market, that's probably not too relevant. And it's really important as well, these different levels, that we understand these different levels within a CRM system. So the pipeline being everything that you can see here, then next level down, the people or businesses, so they're prospects and clients, and then the next level down from that, the deals, the opportunities that you have to do business with those people or those organisations. So having those three levels of the pipeline, the people in the pipeline, and then the deals for those people, that it's really important to understand those differences. And of course, the accurate and timely information of recording information is important, whether it's a sole practitioner working within a business, where still think Pipedrive and CRMs have a part to play, across multiple advisor practices who are supported by administrators, power planners, etc. Being able to training that team to accurately record information in a timely way is crucial. And it's that old cliche of garbage in and garbage out. Really important to make sure that the information going in is as accurate as possible and as complete as it possibly can. I'm just going to sip of water. Dan, is there anything that's come in?
Yes, so another question another note from Richard, actually going back to Pipedrive. So we're an unusual case as we get lots of deals from our clients over time. It's great for moving them through our workflow and pulling MI on sales. We use our CRM for managing new client inquiries as well as comms with anyone else who interacts with the biz who may not be a client, etc. I do think Pipedrive would be better for managing new client inquiries though, through the process, but I think there could be MI issues if we have one pipeline for managing deals from existing clients and one for managing new client inquiries. Do you know if the MI can be split between pipelines?
I don't know about that. I will go and ask them, Richard. We'll make a note, and I'll go back to Pipedrive. I genuinely don't know. You can certainly have different pipelines. Whether the MI can be split, though, I'm sorry, I don't know that. We've not had firms who have multiple pipelines, so they haven't had to have that need answered. But it is a very good question, especially where you're using it for nurturing new inquiries and also as a pseudo project management system.
Yeah, and a similar question from Graham. Can you set up separate pipelines for a workflow for annual reviews as well?
Yes, you can have multiple pipelines in here. So this is for want of a better expression, a sales pipeline, an onboarding pipeline. But if you wanted to set up another pipeline for, as Richard spoke about, project management, annual reviews, all that sort of stuff, yeah, you could absolutely do that. Anything else?
Yeah, one more note though. So from Chris Budd, having signed up to a trial of Pipeline, it forced me to spend 2 days last week going through all of my prospects, which was great discipline in itself. Yeah, we had this conversation last week, didn't we, Chris? It's quite cathartic going through your pipeline. I did ours a few months ago,
And adding those names to it is fascinating in itself and generates opportunities in itself that you'd forgotten about. It's so much better than spreadsheets and little black books and that sort of stuff. But thanks, Chris, that's really, really welcome feedback. So for those who haven't seen Pipedrive or CRM before, as I say, I want to welcome you to Ambridge Financial Planning. So hopefully we've got some other Archers fans out there in this, on this webinar. If not, I'm the only one. But what we've created here is a pipeline for a flow for engaging a new client. So for example, this top line here is completely configured to Ambridge Financial Planning in this case. It's pretty traditional, but you could put in other sections, as many as you wanted to. So this is where someone would come in as soon as they've made contact with the business, and you're waiting to get back in touch with them to understand what their interests are, whether they're going to meet, etc. Then they would go in here. So Jill Archer is waiting for a call back. Then, as we've seen here, now Debbie's been in touch, but we got voicemail on the first call, and therefore Debbie has gone into the second follow-up and is awaiting a second follow-up. And again, you may have multiple occasions where you might try and follow people up. If Debbie had been contacted on the first opportunity and she's booked a first meeting straight away, then she would have been moved over here. And the drag and drop functionality is really quite useful. Now, Kenton Archer hasn't returned 2 calls. So there's been 2 attempts to get in touch with Kenton, and he's due a third follow-up. And we put a column in here that someone may have been contacted on the phone and they're just considering whether to have that first meeting or not. So if, for example, Jill had been spoken to and she was deciding whether to stay in touch or whether to book a first meeting, she might go into here. These are the first meetings which are booked in. And then after that, they would maybe go into a second meeting. And these are second meetings which are booked in. These might be presentations, etc. So you would configure the pipeline to match your engagement process, your onboarding process. And this is entirely configurable at the top. And that would apply to almost every CRM. You can then see some high-level information. So you can see here, we've got this set up to show a expected initial fee. Now, we don't know what Debbie's interested in. Let's put Jill back. We don't know what Jill was interested in. We don't know whether she got a specific need or wants to talk about full financial planning. So we don't know. We have no indication of what the fee may be. But over here, as we start talking to people, as we start talking to clients, we start to understand their fee expectation, so we can start adding things in. And this shows what the pipeline is at the moment. So Ambridge Financial Planning has a pipeline of potentially just over £31,000 of new business. But as I say, it's so important to get this information right, which is going in the first place. And I would be setting up a new client, and we'll set up a new client briefly in a minute, but I will be setting these up as soon as the inquiry is received. Laying it out like this also shows where the pinch points are. So if we'd have had lots of people in here or in here, we would know that maybe the follow-up process wasn't as efficient as it possibly could be. If we have lots of people over here, as we do in this case, we know there's going to be a lot of paperwork and a lot of administration generated over the course of the coming weeks. So we need to gear up for that as well. The next section that we said was important is people. So under contacts, click people, and these are all the people in the pipeline that we've set up in this case. And again, this is configurable. So this is a summary of all the prospects and clients you've been working on, and they're all given a label. And the labels we've configured for this are prospect, dead inquiry. So that's something where the inquiries come in and for whatever reason didn't become a client. Obviously, client, and fake inquiry. That's important if you are dealing with the directories, unbiased, vouched for, etc. Occasionally you do get fake inquiries coming through. Being able to record those making sure that you've got the refunds, making sure that a relatively low proportion of your overall inquiries as well are important. But this list of inquiries can be configured. So if you want to understand, well, who are the clients, who are the prospects, and being able to run campaigns to those, that really helps as well. Now, I've seen someone coming in. Do we need to stop?
A couple of points about Pipedrive again from Richard. So customization is very good in Pipedrive, and the support team's superb, which is something that you've echoed a few times. And then rotting configuration is one of my favourite features.
Yes, we've set up, it's a really good point, Richard. We've set up deal rotting on here, but because we've only set this demo up in the past couple of days, nothing's rotted yet. So the best way of explaining this, if I go into the pipeline settings, and here we go. So this is the pipeline which I have customized for Ambridge Financial Planning. And I've added rotting here, here, and here. And essentially what it means is that if, I think it was Jill Archer who was in here, if nothing has happened to Jill within 3 days, you get an alert. I think it turns red. And it just shows you places where it needs some attention, where the activity hasn't taken place. It needs some attention, but that deal rotting is really fantastic. I'm not sure about the term. I'm not sure how you feel about it, Richard, but it is a fantastic addition. And I echo your points about the customization and the service that you've received.
Okay, just stop you there, Phil. We had a question from Chris. So I may have misunderstood labels. I've used them to describe the type of inquiry. My work now is on succession planning inquiries, so my labels are accountant/solicitor, business owner, and training provider, and so on. Is that wrong?
I'm not sure there's any necessarily right or wrongs here, but there's a number of ways you can do it. So here, Chris, you'll be talking about businesses. So this might be, I don't know, one of the businesses, the Bull Pub, if it's the Archers, and that might be the business. And you could, I think you've got to maybe give them 2 labels. One might be the stage that they're at, and prospect, client, lost inquiry, etc. So I think that's important. So you can understand which businesses fall into which categories and allow you to run marketing campaigns and start nurturing those people. But clearly you may want to add in the type of business that they are, accountancy practice, solicitors firm, etc. So I would do that over here. I would customize a field, and you would do that by going in briefly to settings. You would then go to customize fields. That screen's catch me up. Customize fields, organization, and then you would add a field there, Chris. I'll show you offline again how to do it. But that's where you could start adding the type of business. So I would be adding the type of business in here, and then I would be adding in the stage that they're at, essentially, in their engagement with you at the top here. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, we've got another Chris again. So does the stage not fall out automatically from the deal stage they're in?
Not sure I understand what you mean there, Chris. Let's answer that one offline if that's okay. We'll do a quick screen share later on this afternoon if you're around. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. Yeah. We'll come back to that. That's okay. Anything else before we continue?
No, that's it.
Okay, great. Right, so we were talking about people. We went into David and, in this case, we're going to David and Ruth Archer. And then you can see a lot of information here about David and Ruth. And we're at the client level here rather than the deal level. So we can see that David and Ruth came from Unbiased. We can also, if we want to, pull out a report that shows over X period of time where inquiries came from. And then we can start analysing the source of new inquiries. So important. If that had said a referral, we'd then include the name of the person who's referring there. Basic contact information, which is really, really handy if you've got a mobile app on your phone for your CRM system. Again, it's reducing the number of sources of data you've got. There's no organisation link for this person. We've got some information about the deals. And here in multi-advisor firms or multi-people firms, this is where you can start allocating different people, different clients, different prospects to different members of your team. Other thing that's quite useful here, if you don't want to set up, and if you don't want to set up an email integration, you can simply BCC your email to the clients in, and it will automatically get added to Pipedrive. And here on their record, here you see a record of everything that was done with the client. And again, don't want this to turn into a Pipedrive sales pitch, because it's not, but it will be the same in other CRM systems as well, that you have a complete record of all the activity that's been undertaken with this client, whether it be emails, notes, etc., etc. It's so useful. And there's a lot of integrations with this as well with other systems. So we use something, for example, called Better Proposals. If anybody's on this call is a client of ours, and I see there's quite a few, you will have had a proposal from us at some point using the Better Proposal system, and it integrates with this. So again, I'll be looking, when I'm choosing my CRM system, I'll be looking at the integrations that are available as well. Dan, I can see some stuff coming through.
Yeah, so Richard has given Chris an answer, which is great. So to answer Chris, the deal stage won't pull through into a label, but you can run a deal filter to show all inquiries / clients at each stage in the pipeline. And the view is Kanban or spreadsheet style list.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for that.
And then Richard also says, the contact timeline option in the contact menu is superb of what you're showing.
Great, good. I see a couple of questions coming in as well. Do we need to?
Yeah, we've got. I'll leave that question till the end.
Okay,
one
fine.
from Wazim.
Okay, fine. We'll come back to that in a bit, Wazim.
Yeah.
So this is the client level, and then below that you may have the deal level. So let's have a look here, and we can see. Let's go back to this point here. Let's look at this. So Chris and Alice Carter. The little arrow there is telling me that there is no action that is attributable to Chris and Alice. There's no reminders added into the system that something needs to be done, which is really quite important. So we go into this deal. The stage they're at, there's the first meeting booked. They're interested in mortgage advice because they want to move house, so therefore they have no assets under management. And these are, again, in any CRM, completely configurable. I have just put these in as some examples. So here, for example, the drop-downs, estate planning, financial plan, etc. But they should be completely configurable in any good system to allow you to pull out or enter the data that you want and then be able to pull it out. Chris and Alice came to us via Facebook. They're currently a prospect. Got the contact details, as we say, and I'm the advisor that's attached to it. Now here again, you can blind copy in the deal as well as the client themselves. So if you were emailing them about a specific deal or about a specific, in this case, a mortgage, you can include that BCC, and it will get added to this list of schedules, this schedule of everything that's been going on. And let's go back and have a look at somebody else. Let's have a look at Jill. Now Jill Archer, she is awaiting contact. So someone comes along and is about to ring her. They make that initial call to Jill to show you how it may work. So she's made that call on the 9th of the 5th, 2019, and Jill wasn't available. Excuse my typing. Got voicemail. Need to call back. So we can see what the task was. We can see the outcome of the task. We can mark that as done when this system allows me to do it. Slight conflict with, there we go. Mark that's done, and then we can click save. Now, again, this then immediately prompts another action. So there is always something, there is always an action being added. So we would then say, try to call Jill again, and we're scheduling that for Monday. If I wanted to, I'm the only person in the system right now, but I could allocate that to other members of the team if I wanted to, which would trigger an alert to them. I would click save, and I want to move Jill into that section of the pipeline now because she's in the point where she's due a second follow-up call. then we go back, and then Jill's been moved. So it allows you to understand where each prospect is in that journey to becoming a client, and it's so beneficial. It's so useful. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is how we add a new client. So if we were to add a person, and we're going to add a chap called Justin Elliott. Now, Justin came to us. He was referred to us by his local firm of solicitors, Bridge Legal, spelled poorly, apologies. And he's currently a prospect, clearly. Put something in his phone number, and put his email address in. Click save. And this, again, you could attribute this to other members of your team, should you wish. Click save. And go back to Justin. So we've added Justin as a person now. He's in there as a person. We then need to add the deal that we're working on with him. So he doesn't have an organisation name. We don't know any idea what he wants in terms of deal value, but we do know that he wants to talk about estate planning. He said that on his email to us. Click save, and we then need to set up an action. Schedule activity. Now, on his email to us, he said he doesn't want to be called until next Monday at 10. So we call Justin, put that in as an action, and we're going to call him at 10. And again, you can set this up, and same with all CRMs, but you can set this up so that it is integrated with your email system, with your diaries, etc. Now, Justin then goes into the pipeline, and we know that we need to call him. Any actions on here which are due today will be shown in green. Anywhere you don't actually have a follow-up action, we've got a little warning sign. So they need to be looked at. So that's a quick tour around of the pipeline of a CRM system, adding people, showing how being able to moving along the pipeline will show you where people are in their engagement to you. But it's so important that you then take the use of the CRM to the next level and let it show you how your business is performing. So we've set up a couple of rudimentary goals on here. And if we look at the dashboard here, key things for Ambridge Financial Planning. Well, in terms of at the top of their sales funnel, they have previously worked out that they need 10 new inquiries each month to achieve their goals based on their conversion rate and their typical client. Well, so far this month, they've had 23. Clearly, word's been getting around Ambridge that they're good, and so far they have started or had 23 new inquiries with potential of just over 55,000 of 56,000 of new business. So that indicates that marketing is working, but it also indicates that further down the line there may be operational pinch points along the way. Now, moving over to the right-hand side, they have a goal of £15,000 per month of new business, new fees. And we can see here that they've done seven deals worth a total of £17,000. So we can see that even this early in May, they've achieved their goal. But we can also see that they've lost 3 deals. And again, this is important so we start understanding, and imagine this built up month on month, this amount of data. It's important that we understand how they've lost. And they've lost 3 deals. We can see I was the advisor. We can see the value of the deals that were lost. And these are the reasons they've lost. Linda wouldn't pay fees, Kate was lost out to a competitor, and there was another reason for Emma. If we go into Emma's deal, we can see that it was a life insurance deal and she didn't want to pay the premiums. So understanding why deals have been lost is really important. And again, these reasons, so important to configure these reasons and lock them in the system. You can have a miscellaneous, obviously. And we've done it here, so let's just pick on one of these. And you can see the reasons we've included that something may be lost. Didn't return calls, wrong type of client, fake inquiry, etc., etc. and if something doesn't fall into one of those categories, miscellaneous, and click comment and add the comments. But it's really important for the information that you can pull out to understand why deals may have been lost. So at a very high level, you can configure the dashboard of any CRM to show how your pipeline is shaping up compared to the goals you have for the business. You can then go into other areas. We can then look at reports, which are in there, and show, for example, I'm interested in conversion. So we can see that during this period, we have converted 68% of all new inquiries to one client. Probably it's a very nice conversion rate, probably a bit on the high side right now compared to the average we see, but it's starting to show the percentage of the conversion rates. We can see conversion rates at different stages, and we can really start using data and information to make evidence-led decisions about the business. And has anybody got any more questions for that before we go back to the actual presentation itself?
Yes, so I've got a few questions that have trickled through. We've got one from Wazim. So, silly question, but well, there's no silly questions. Chances are, if you're thinking it, somebody else is as well. Do you use CRMs for existing clients as well as only for managing new prospects? If only for new prospects, what do you use for existing clients, especially from a marketing point of view?
No, Wazim, I'd use it for existing clients as well. And we use it for existing clients here at Yardstick, and we work with advice firms who use it for existing clients as well, because you may have existing clients that outside of their normal periodic review process have requirements for new advice. So people retiring, so you've given them advice for the last 10 years and now's come the time to retire. So that's when you might add that piece of work. There may be they leave employment, go self-employed and have a defined benefit scheme you need to look at. So no, I'd be using it for existing clients as well.
Yeah, another question we've had from Helena, which is pretty much a carbon copy of Wazim's. We've got another question from Matt. Pipeline looks pretty impressive. Any downsides that are better met by other CRMs?
There will probably be other CRMs which can do other things as well. I would love to see more integrations from Pipedrive around email. And I don't mean just normal day-to-day emails. I mean integrations with Dotmailer and Mailchimp, etc. That will be really quite useful. But for me, and we looked around. We had a good look at HubSpot. We've got clients who use Zoho. We've got clients who use Wealthbox. This just ticked more boxes. No CRM, I think, is ever going to tick all the boxes. It just ticked more boxes, and it certainly ticked a pricing box as well, which was always a value box, I should say, which was important. Interestingly,
the question we had from Wazim earlier that I wanted to leave towards the end was, how do you find Pipedrive compared to Zoho, HubSpot, or Infusionsoft?
I find it simpler. So we've got a client in the States using Infusionsoft, and it's really quite complex. I've not found the configurability of Wealthbox as intuitive or as easy to do as on Pipedrive. For example, we've got a client and they had to ask Wealthbox to add a custom field, wherein Pipedrive it's very easy to do. HubSpot confuses the hell out of me, frankly, and just seems over-engineered for what we need it to do for clients. Be interested to see if we've got any HubSpot users on this call. But as I say, it's for me, and obviously Richard, you feel the same because you've used it. It was just the right mix. Didn't tick every box, but it ticked most boxes of what I wanted it to do and what most of our clients wanted to do. Our biggest client that uses Pipedrive has got 5 advisors, 80 inquiries a month, 80, and 3 administrators. So it's serving their needs really rather nicely right now. But yes, it'd be nice if we got a bit more email integration.
Okay, so with that in mind, Duncan's just asked a good question. What's the cost difference between some of these systems?
I've not looked at that, to be honest, Duncan. The cost of the gold license we've got with Pipedrive, I think, is about £30 a month. Richard, I'd be interested to know what licenses you use. But I've not really compared cost in any meaningful detail. It's relatively easy to do. All these companies provide A, free trials, and B, lots of information online about their charging structures. Well, I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going to flip back to the presentation, if that's okay with everybody, and start looking through that. Dan, I've just seen something else come through while this is...
Yes, so a question from Jenny. We receive a lot of initial queries by email from our website link. Is there a way to automatically feed this info into Pipedrive?
Yes, you can set up web forms, which allows you to, basically you're adding code to your website, which allows the information from the web form, whether it's first name, client, surname, email address, whatever it is, to be put straight into Pipedrive. And other CRMs will offer the same functionality. So you're removing a manual process. You'll still have some custom fields to fill in, but absolutely you can do that by the web forms integration.
Brilliant. And Richard has said that we're on silver at 15 per user per month. Tried gold and platinum, but didn't need features.
Yeah, we use gold. The firm that I talked to that has multiple advisors, they use gold as well. The cost does mount up. I think they're probably paying a couple of £100 a month, but it actually saves them time because they're not analysing huge numbers of spreadsheets, etc. So how does a CRM, just to wrap up now, how does a CRM benefit or could it benefit your business? It will certainly help with making evidence-based decisions rather than decisions on gut feel. It shows you where your sales funnel is working. It shows you where you are against those goals that you have for your business. You may have goals in terms of new inquiries, conversion rate, fees generated, assets under management bill, etc., whatever they are. But it allows you to understand where your pipeline is, how much you're putting into the top of your funnel to squeeze out what you actually need from the bottom. I absolutely believe it will help improve conversion rates. If for nothing else, it focuses you on activity rather than focusing on making sales in inverted commas or engaging clients. You're focusing on activity. You're focusing on following up clients efficiently, making sure they've got what they need, making sure proposals are sent at the right time, etc., etc. So from an efficiency perspective and focusing on process, it really, really helps. And if you can improve conversion rates, you'll spend less money with the likes of us. And if you can move your conversion rate from 1 in 5 to 2 in 5, you don't need to generate those additional inquiries that you would need to because your conversion rate was low. So it allows you to potentially over time reduce marketing budget and reduce the resources you allocated to marketing. And lastly, as I said earlier, it's that canary in the coal mine. It shows potential future operational challenges and financial issues. If there's not enough going in the pipeline, if you go 3 months with missing your new inquiry target, you know at some point down the line that's going to impact your turnover. Conversely, if like Ambridge Financial Planning, you've had an amazing May, you know that come June, July, August, etc., then there's going to be a lot of paperwork to take care of. Do you need to upscale? Do you need to make sure your outsourcers can cope with that, etc.? And of course, you can give other people access to the system as well, so they know what's going on. So for us, there's some work to do to configure CRMs to start with. As Chris said, it's quite cathartic. It's nice. It generates opportunities in itself. Actually building the system and configuring it for your business. But over the long term, there are significant benefits to running a CRM, whether it's something bespoke or your back office system, getting into those good habits and building those processes. Little word before we finish about how we can help. We can help by looking at your current provision, how you collect data, conversion rates, habit processes, etc. We can then help you if you wish to, but these next steps you can do yourself. Agree those key problems and challenges. Next step for you then, review systems, implement new systems and processes, etc. But the one thing that you should do is take action. If you get nothing else out of this call today, then make sure you're recording the data for new inquiries, which we've suggested on one of the earlier slides. Then start having a look at your traditional back office system if you use it, and then consider whether a CRM during that engagement process, or as you say, Wazim, for new opportunities, is important and it has a part to play. We can help with consultancy to set up CRMs, build processes and analyse data. Pipedrive offer clients of Yardsticker a 30-day trial instead of 14, so you'll get a link for that later on. We can set up Pipedrive, we can set up other CRMs, and we can train you on that. And of course, we can help with inquiry nurturing, marketing strategy, and all that sort of good stuff. If you want to get in touch with us, there is my email address there, our new telephone number. Please, if you've got the old one, use the new one. And there's my Twitter handle there as well. So the Council House bells are ringing. It's 11 o'clock. We've done it in exactly an hour. Thanks for all your questions. Happy to stay around for a few minutes and answer any more if we've got them.
Yes, we do have a couple more that have trickled in. I expect the answer to this next question to be, it depends. But Neil asks a good question. Based on what you showed us this morning and the various functionalities, what level and package of Pipedrive would you recommend?
I'm not going to say it depends, but, because it's an obvious answer. The firm we've worked with recently, the most recent firm we've worked with, they had gold. And there was various integrations that they wanted. I've not seen anything in the platinum which would make me want to go there. So the gold is a decent enough starting point, and from memory, that's where you start on the free version, the free 30-day trial. So I would start there and work my way up or down depending on what functionality I needed. But I base it on the usage. Give it 3 months, and then see whether you're using that gold functionality and whether you could actually do with the platinum one or the lower version.
Okay, good question from Andrew. Do you think Pipedrive will incorporate a group emailing facility going forwards?
It would be, I would, if the functionality was there and it worked as well as bespoke email systems, such as Dotmailer, MailChimp, etc., then yeah, I hope they do that. Whether they do or not, I genuinely don't know. Again, something we can ask them. What I would prefer to see in the short term is an integration with a bespoke system, Dotmailer, MailChimp, etc., but an integration that worked well. I've seen bulk email facilities in traditional IFA back office systems, and they are either rubbish or there's a couple that work really well. But I've seen they don't necessarily have all the functionality of a bespoke bulk email system. So personally, at the moment, I would rather see an integration with an existing system rather than the functionality in there, unless they're going to do that functionality as well as the bulk email systems already do.
Okay, another good question from Wazim. So going back to Jenny, who asked about web forms being linked into Pipedrive. Wazim asks, can emails that come directly to you as opposed to via a web form be integrated with Pipedrive?
Absolutely. You can integrate your email systems so that they're automatically added into Pipedrive. You can use Pipedrive to send emails out as well. So yeah, it keeps you that golden thread of data. Absolutely, you can do that.
Perfect. And one final question from Neil. Earlier on in the webinar, you mentioned Curo as an option. What's your opinion of Curo, and how does it compare to Pipedrive?
I've seen a demo of Curo, and it was only a demo. It was a sales demo, but I was really impressed with it. Have we got any Curo users on here who could answer Neil's questions better? But what I've seen of it, I was really impressed by. And we've got a couple of clients who use Curo, and I know they're happy with the system. But that's my opinion based on a sales call and some anecdotal evidence from clients.
Okay, I think that's
everything
for me. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, I hope that's been a useful introduction to CRMs, and that's what it was intended to be, as opposed to a tutorial. I hope it's given you some things to think about. Make sure you're collecting that data. Have a look around different CRMs. Have a look at your back office and see what it can do. And if you've got questions, queries, then please do get in touch. My email is there, our telephone number, Twitter handle, And at that point, we will say adieu, and we will be sending links, slides, and the recording in due course. Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.